October 30th, 1899, Volume 2, Threat of Chastisements for Rome. This morning my benign Jesus came all afflicted, and the first words he spoke to me were, "Poor Rome, how you will be destroyed. In looking at you, I cry over you." And he was saying this with such tenderness as to arouse compassion. But I could not understand whether it was only about the people or also the buildings. Since I had the obedience not to conform to justice, but to pray, I said to him, "My beloved Jesus, when it is about chastisements, one must no longer argue, but only pray." And so I began to pray, to kiss his wounds, and to make acts of reparation. And while I was doing this, every now and then he would say to me, "My daughter, do not use violence on me. By doing this you want to use violence on me by force. Therefore calm yourself." And I, "Lord, it is obedience that wants it so. It is not I that do this." He added, "The river of iniquities is so great as to reach the point of preventing the redemption of souls, and prayer alone, and these wounds of mine, can prevent this raging river from absorbing them all into itself." October 30th, 1902, Volume 4. Jesus Christ came to join God and man once again. This morning, as I was in a sea of worries and of tears because of the total abandonment of my highest good, while feeling consumed by the pain, I felt my mind being estranged. And I saw blessed Jesus sustaining my forehead with his hand, and something like a light, which contained many words of truth inside. I can barely remember this. That is, when our humanity untied the bond of obedience which God had placed between himself and the creature, a bond which alone united God and man, it became dispersed. And Jesus Christ, taking on human nature and making himself our head, came to reunite the dispersed humanity, and with his obedience to the volition of the Father, he came to join God and man once again. But this indissoluble union is strengthened further according to our obedience to the divine volition. After this, I no longer saw my dear Jesus, and that light withdrew together with him. October 30th, 1903, Volume 5. Teachings about Peace. This morning, since my adorable Jesus was not coming, I was thinking in my interior, who knows whether it is true that it was our Lord who was coming, or rather it was the enemy to deceive me? How could Jesus Christ leave me in such an ugly way, without pity? Now, while I was thinking of this, he made himself seen for a few instants, and raising his right hand, pressing his thumb on my mouth, told me, "Be quiet, be quiet." And besides, would it be nice if someone who had seen the sun only because he does not see it says that what he had seen was not sun? Would it not be more true and reasonable if he said that the sun has hidden? And he disappeared. I could not see him, but I felt that with his hands he was retouching me all over and rubbing my mouth and my mind and so forth, and he made me all shining. Since I could not see him, my mind continued to raise doubts, and he, making himself seen again, added, "You still don't want to stop it? You want to make my work in you disappear, because by doubting you are not at peace. And since I am the font of peace, as the one who guides you does not see you at peace, you will cause him to doubt that it is not the King of Peace who dwells in you. Ah, you do not want to be attentive. It is true that I myself do everything in the soul in such a way that without me she would do nothing. But it is also true that I always leave a thread of will to the soul, so that she too may be able to say, I do everything of my own will. So by being restless you break this thread of union with me, and you bind my arms in such a way that I am unable to operate in you, waiting for you to put yourself at peace again in order to take the thread of your will again and continue my work. October 30th, 1916, Volume 11. Threats of scourges, especially for Italy. I was lamenting to my always lovable Jesus, for in these past days he would hardly come, or I would just barely perceive his shadow, and then he would disappear. And blessed Jesus told me, My daughter, how quickly you forget that on those days in which I do not come so much, and I escape you, it is for nothing else but to give one more winding to the scourges. Things will rage more and more. Ah, man has reached such perversity that it is not enough to touch his flesh to make him surrender, but I have come to the point of pulverizing him. Therefore one nation will invade another, and they will lacerate each other. Blood will flow like waters in the towns. Even more, in certain nations they will become the enemies of themselves, and they will fight one another. They will kill one another. They will do crazy things. Ah, how much man grieves me. I myself cry over him. At the words of Jesus, I burst into crying, and I prayed him to spare poor Italy. But Jesus said, Italy, Italy, ah, if you knew how much evil she is up to, how many plots against my church. The blood she is causing to be shed in battle is not enough for her. She is thirsty for more blood, but wants the blood of my children, the blood of the primate. She wants to stain herself with such crimes as to draw upon herself the revenge of heaven and of other nations. I remained terrorized. I fear greatly, but I hope that the Lord will placate himself. October 30th, 1922, Volume 14. The Prodigies of the Creature Operating in the Divine Will. Continuing in my usual state, my always adorable Jesus came, and plunging me into the immense light of his most holy will, told me, My daughter, look at the prodigies of the creature operating in my will. As she enters into my will and thinks, prays, works, she rises with me. And since I am voice without word, my voice is formed and reaches each heart according to its own needs, and in many different ways and languages which are in the creatures, in such a way that all can understand me. I am work without hands, and therefore I am work of each one. I am step without feet, in such a way that wherever I go I find myself in act. In the same way the soul, by operating in my will, becomes voice without word, work without hands, step without feet, and I feel her flowing in my voice, in my works, and in my steps. I feel her everywhere, and as I feel her always together with me, I no longer feel lonely. And since I love the company of the creature very much, taken by love for her, I divinize her, I enrich her, and I give her such graces as to astonish heaven and earth. October 30th, 1923, Volume 16. One who lives in the divine will is nourished by the flames of Jesus, and filtered through the light of the divine will, in order to be deified in God. I live always embittered and with my heart petrified by the pain of the privation of my sweet Jesus. I feel without life, because the one who is true life is not with me. Oh, how often I repeated, "Tell me, O my only and highest good, where did you direct your steps, so that in following them I may find you?" Ah, from afar I kiss those hands which, with so much love, embraced me and pressed me to your heart. I adore and kiss that face which showed itself to me with so much grace and beauty, and which now hides and is far away from me. Tell me, where are you? Which way should I take in order to reach you? Tell me, what should I do? Where did I offend you that you run away from me? Yet you told me that you would never leave me, and now you leave me? Ah, Jesus, Jesus, come back to the one who cannot live without you, to your little daughter, to your little exiled. But who can tell all my laments and the nonsense I said? Then in the meantime I felt like losing my senses, and I could see a dove, all on fire, which was agonizing, and a person near it, who from his burning breath was feeding the dove with his flames in order to nourish it, preventing it from taking any other food, holding it tightly and so close to his mouth that it could do nothing but breathe and swallow the flames which came from him. The poor dove agonized and turned into those flames with which it was nourished. I was surprised in seeing this, and my Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, why do you fear that I may leave you? In order to leave you, I should leave myself, which I cannot do. As much power as I have, I do not have the power to separate from myself. The same is for one who does my will. Since she becomes inseparable from me, I lack the power to separate from her. Not only this, but I keep nourishing her with my own flames. Have you not seen that dove all on fire? It was the image of your soul, and the one who was feeding it with his breath was I, who so much delight in nourishing one who lives in my will, only with the flames unleashed by my heart and through breath. Don't you know that one who lives in my will must be filtered through the most pure light of it? And to be filtered is more than to be put under a press, because even though the press crushes all to pieces, it lets everything out, both seeds and skin, which settle at the bottom and leave always something cloudy. On the other hand, when something is filtered, and especially if it is filtered through the thick light of my will, there is no danger that it might deposit something cloudy. Rather, everything is clear, similar to the clearness of the light through which it has been filtered. And this is a great honor for the soul who lives in my will, that whether she thinks, speaks, loves, or so forth, my will takes the commitment to filter whatever she does through its most pure light. And this is necessary so that in everything she does there may be no distinction from what we do, but all things may hold hands and share their likeness. Now, as he was saying this, I found myself outside of myself, within a garden, and tired, I sat down under a tree to rest. But the rays of the sun darted through me in such a way that I felt I was burning. I wanted to go under a thicker tree which would produce more shade, so as not to be hurt by the sun. But a voice, it seems to me that it was my beloved Jesus, prevented me from doing so, saying, "One who lives in my will must be fully exposed to the rays of the burning and eternal sun, in order to live of light, to see nothing but light, and to touch nothing but light. This leads to the deification of the soul. Only then can one say that the soul lives in my will, when she remains all deified in God. Even more, come out from under the tree and stroll in this celestial Eden of my will, so that gazing at you thoroughly the sun may convert you into light and may give you the final touch of your deification in God. I began to stroll, but as I was doing this, obedience called me back into myself. October 30th, 1924, Volume 17, Why the Angels Are Angels, and How They Maintain Themselves in the Prime Act in which They Were Created. I feel I cannot entrust my sorrowful secrets to the pen, nor express on paper what I feel within my martyred heart. Ah, yes, there is no martyrdom which can compare to the martyrdom of the privation of my sweet Jesus. The martyr is wounded and killed in his body, while the martyrdom of his privation wounds the soul. It lacerates her in her most intimate fibers. And what is worse is that it kills her without making her die, to strike her continuously on the iron anvil of pain and of love. And as I pass over the pains I feel in my interior, because these are things which I cannot say, like one of the poorest beggars, I would like to beg everyone, the angels, the saints, my Queen Mamma, the whole of creation, for a word, a little prayer to Jesus for me, so that prayed by all, he may be moved to compassion for the little daughter of his will, and let her come back from the hard exile in which I find myself. Then I was thinking to myself about what had passed through my mind. That is, it seemed to me as if I had my angel near me instead of Jesus. And I said to myself, and why the angel and not Jesus? At that moment I felt him move in my interior, saying to me, "My daughter, do you want to know why the angels are such? Because they maintained themselves beautiful and pure, just as they came out of my hands. Because they have always remained still in that first act in which they were created. Therefore, being in that prime act of their existence, they remain in that single act of my will, which, not knowing succession of acts, does not change, nor decrease or increase, and contains within itself all possible imaginable goods. And the angels, maintaining themselves in that single act of my will through which I delivered them to the light, remain immutable, beautiful, and pure. They have lost nothing of their primary existence, and all their happiness is in willingly maintaining themselves in that single act of my will. They find everything in the circuit of my will, nor do they want, in order to be happy, anything other than what my will administers to them. But do you know why there are different choirs of angels, one superior to the other? There are some which are closer to my throne. Do you know why? Because my will manifested itself in its act to some with one single extension of knowledges and qualities, to some with 2, to some with 3, to some with 4, and so on, up to 9 choirs. And in each additional thing of the act which my will manifested, some became superior to others. And the first ones, more than the others, became able and more worthy to be close to my throne. Therefore, the more my will manifests itself in them, and they remain in it, the more they are raised, embellished, made happy and superior to others. See, then, how everything is in my will. And from the ability of the angels to maintain themselves without ever leaving, in that same will from which they came, and from the greater or lesser knowledge of the divine science of my supreme will, come the different choirs of angels, their distinct beauties, the different offices, and the whole celestial hierarchy. If you knew what it means to have a greater knowledge of my will, to do one more act in it, to maintain oneself and to act in that will of mine which is known, the level at which the creature is constituted, and the office, the beauty, the superiority of each creature, oh, how much you would appreciate the different knowledges which I manifested to you about my will. One more knowledge about my will raises the soul to such sublime height that the very angels remain stupefied and enraptured, and they profess me incessantly, Holy, holy, holy. My will manifests itself and calls things from nothing, forming beings. It manifests itself and embellishes. It manifests itself and raises one higher. It manifests itself and expands the divine life in the creature. It manifests itself and forms in her new and unheard of portents. Therefore, from the many things I manifested to you about my will, you can understand what I want to do with you and how much I love you, and how your life must be a chain of continuous acts done in my will. If the creature, just like the angel, never left that prime act through which my will delivered her to the light, what order, what portents would not be seen upon earth? Therefore, my daughter, never go out of your origin in which my will created you, and may your prime act be always my will. After this, with my thought, I placed myself near my Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and I prayed him to let me penetrate into that love with which he so much loved me. And my Jesus, moving again in the depth of my interior, told me, My daughter, enter into my love and never leave it. Run after it, or stop in my own love in order to comprehend well how much I loved the creature. Everything in me is love toward her. In creating this creature, the divinity intended to love her always. So, in everything, inside and outside of her, it was to run toward her with a continuous and incessant new act of love. Therefore I can say that in every thought, gaze, word, breath, heartbeat, and in all the rest of the creature, runs an act of eternal love. But if the divinity intended to love this creature, always and in everything, it was because it wanted to receive in everything the return of the new and incessant love of the creature. It wanted to give love in order to receive love. It wanted to love to be loved in return. But it was not so. Not only did the creature not want to maintain this alternation of love, or to respond to the echo of the love of her Creator, but she rejected this love. She denied it and offended it. At this affront, the divinity did not stop, but continued its new and incessant love toward the creature. And since the creature would not receive it, it filled heaven and earth with it, waiting for one who would take this love so as to receive love in return. In fact, when God decides and proposes, all adverse events do not change him. Rather, he remains immutable in his immutability. And so this is why, moving on to another excess of my love, I, Word of the Father, came upon earth, and taking on a humanity, I gathered within myself all this love which filled heaven and earth, in order to return the divinity with as much love, for as much as it had given and was to give to the creatures. And I constituted myself love of each thought, of each gaze, of each word, heartbeat, movement, and step of creature. Therefore my humanity was worked by the hands of the eternal love of my celestial Father, down to its most little fiber, in order to give me the capacity to enclose all the love that the divinity wanted to give to the creatures, to give to my humanity the love of all, and to constitute me love of each active creature. So, each one of your thoughts is crowned by incessant acts of love. There is nothing, inside and outside of you, which is not surrounded by my repeated acts of love. This is why in this garden my humanity moans, pants, agonizes, feels crushed under the weight of so much love, because I love and I am not loved in return. The pains of love are the most bitter ones, the most cruel. They are pains without pity, more painful than my very passion. Oh, if they loved me, the weight of so much love would become light. When it is returned, love remains quenched and satisfied in the very love of the one who loves. But when it is not returned, it becomes crazy, delirious, and it feels the love it unleashed as being returned with an act of death. See then how much more bitter and painful was the passion of my love, because if in the passion they gave only one death, in the passion of love the ungrateful creatures made me suffer as many deaths for as many acts of love as came from me, for which I received no return. Therefore come, my daughter, to give me the return of so much love in my will, and you will find all this love as though in act. Make it your own, and together with me, constitute yourself love of each active creature, to give me the return of the love of all. October 30th, 1927, Volume 23, How the Divine Love Gushed Out in Creation. Liberality and magnificence of God in creating the machine of the universe, especially in creating his beloved jewel, with no one's merit. Decision of the divine will of wanting to come to reign in the midst of creatures. Its balsamic air, its enchanting and enrapturing beauty. What the knowledges about it will do. I was feeling all abandoned in the divine Fiat, and I felt my poor mind as though soaked with the light of its sanctity, beauty, and indescribable happiness. To possess the font of all goods, to enjoy the expanse of the infinite seas of all joys, to possess all the attractions of inexhaustible beauties, of divine beauties, to the point of enamoring God himself, and to live in the divine volition by letting it reign in one's soul, is all the same. Will of God, how lovable, adorable, desirable you are, more than my very life. Your reigning is reign of light, that has the power of emptying me of what does not belong to its light. It is reign of sanctity that transforms me, not in the sanctity of the saints, but in the sanctity of my Creator. It is reign of happiness and of joy that puts to flight, away from me, all bitternesses, troubles, and bothers. But how can the creatures ever dispose themselves and merit receiving a kingdom so great? Now, while I was thinking about this, and my mind was swimming in the expanse of the sea of the divine Fiat, my lovable Jesus came out from within my interior, and pressing me to himself, all tenderness told me, "My little daughter, you must know that our love gushed out in creation, and overflowing outside of ourselves, without having anyone merited such a great good, not even with a single word. Our highest goodness and liberality with no limits created the whole machine of the universe with such magnificence, order, and harmony, for love of the one who did not yet exist. After this, our love gushed out more strongly, and we created He for whom all things had been created. And since in operating we operate always with unreachable magnanimity, and while we are not depleted, we give everything, so that nothing of magnanimity, of greatness, and of all goods may be lacking to our work, in creating man, with no merit at all on his part, as dowry, foundation, and substance of all goods, joys, and happinesses, we gave him our will as his kingdom, so that he might lack nothing, having a divine will at his disposal, and with it our supreme being. What honor would ours have been if the work of creation had been poor, meager in light, without the multiplicity of so many created things, without order and without harmony, and our dear jewel, our dear Son, which is man, without the fullness of the goods of He who had created him? It would not have been honor for the one who possesses everything and can do everything, to do an incomplete work. More so since, in gushing out so very strongly, as more than mighty waves, our love wanted to give, to show off as much as it could, to the point of filling our beloved jewel with all possible and imaginable goods, and forming seas around him, placed in him by his Creator, that would overflow from him himself. And if man lost this, it is he who rejected of his own will the kingdom of my will, his dowry, and the substance of his happiness. Now, as in creation, my love is gushing out strongly, and it is decided that the kingdom of my will wants its life in the midst of creatures. Therefore, showing off with all magnificence, without looking at their merits, with insuperable magnanimity, it wants to give its kingdom again. Only it wants creatures to know this, and to know its goods, so that by knowing them they might long for and want the kingdom of sanctity, of light, and of happiness. And just as one will rejected it, so may another one call it, long for it, press it to come to reign in the midst of creatures. Here is then the necessity of the knowledges about it. If a good is not known, it is neither wanted nor loved. Therefore the knowledges will be the messengers, the heralds that will announce my kingdom. My knowledges about my Fiat will take the attitude now of suns, now of thunders, now of bolts of light, now of mighty winds that will call the attention of the learned and of the ignorant, of the good and also of the evil, falling into their hearts like lightnings and knocking them down with irresistible strength to make them rise again in the good of the knowledges acquired. They will form the true renewal of the world. They will assume all attitudes in order to attract and win the creatures, taking the attitude now of peacemakers, who want the kiss of the creatures to give them their own, so as to forget about all the past, and remember only to love each other and make each other happy. Now of warriors, sure of their victory, to render sure the conquest they want to make of those who come to know them. Now of incessant prayers, that will cease to supplicate only when creatures, conquered by the knowledges of my divine will say, "You have won. We are now prey to your kingdom." Now of king, dominating and inspiring love, such that they will lower their foreheads to let themselves be dominated. What will my will not do? It will place the whole of its power in attitude, in order to come to reign in the midst of creatures. My will possesses an enrapturing beauty that, if it makes itself seen with clarity even just once, enraptures, embellishes, casting its waves of beauties over the soul in such a way that they will not easily be able to forget a beauty so rare, and will remain as though in the maze of its beauty, unable to get out. It possesses an enchanting power, and the soul remains fixed within its sweet enchantment. It possesses a balsamic air, such that as it is breathed, they will feel enter into themselves the air of peace, of sanctity, of divine harmony, of happiness, of the light that purifies everything, of the love that burns everything, of the power that conquers everything, in such a way that this air will bring the celestial balm to all the evils produced by the bad, morbid, and deadly air of the human will. See, also in the human life, air acts in a surprising way. If the air is pure, good, healthy, fragrant, the respiration is free, the blood circulation is regular, and creatures grow strong, nourished, rosy, and healthy. But if the air is bad, stinking and infected, the respiration is hampered, the blood circulation is irregular, and not receiving the life of the pure air, creatures are weak, pale, gaunt, and sickly. The air is the life of creatures. They cannot live without it. But there is a great difference between good and bad air. So it is with the air of the soul. The air of my will maintains life pure, healthy, holy, beautiful, and strong, as it came out from the womb of its Creator. The deadly air of the human will deforms the poor creature. It makes her descend from her origin, and she grows so sick, weak, such as to arouse pity. Then with a more tender emphasis he added, "Oh, my will, how lovable, admirable, powerful you are! Your beauty enamors the heavens and maintains the enchantment that enraptures the whole celestial court, in such a way that they are happy not to be able to remove their gazes from you. Oh, please, with your enchanting beauty that enraptures everything, enrapture the earth, and with your sweet enchantment, enchant all creatures, so that one may be the will of all, one the sanctity, one the life, one your kingdom, one your fiat on earth as it is in heaven." October 30th, 1929. Volume 27. One who lives in the divine will can go around in all the works of God and acquires the divine rights. The sweet enchantment of the omnipotent fiat keeps me as though eclipsed in it with its light, and I can see nothing but all of its acts, to place my "I love you" as a seal upon each one of its acts, in order to ask for the kingdom of its divine will in the midst of creatures. Now, before my mind, I saw a great wheel of light that filled the whole earth, and while the center of the wheel was all one light, many rays were sticking out around it for as many acts as the divine fiat had done, and I moved from one ray to another to place on them the seal of my "I love you," to then leave it in each ray, asking it continuously for the kingdom of its divine will. Now, while I was doing this, my always lovable Jesus, coming out of my interior, told me, "My daughter, with one who lives in my divine will and forms her acts in it, these acts remain as the work of the creature, binding God to give her the rights of a kingdom so holy, and therefore the rights to make it known and to make it reign upon earth. In fact, the soul who lives in my fiat reacquires all the acts of it done for love of creatures. God renders her the conqueror, not only of his will, but of all creation. There is not one act of it in which the creature does not place her act, be it even one "I love you," one "I adore you." So, having placed something of her own, everything remains bound, and my fiat feels happy because finally it has found the fortunate creature to whom it can give what it wanted to give with so much love from the very beginning of the creation of all the universe. Therefore, by living in my divine will, the creature enters into the divine order. She becomes the proprietor of its works, and by right she can give and ask for others what is her own. And since she lives in it, her rights are divine, and she asks by a right that is divine, not human. Each of her acts is a call that she makes to her Creator, and with his very divine empire she says to him, "Give me the kingdom of your divine will, that I may give it to creatures, so that it may reign in their midst, and all of them may love you with divine love and be all reordered in you." Now you must know that every time you go around in my will to put something of your own, it is one more divine right that you acquire to ask for a kingdom so holy. This is why, as you go around in it, all the works of creation come forward before you, and all those of redemption line up around you, waiting for you, so as to receive, each one of them, your act, to give you the requital of the act of our works. And you keep tracing them one by one, to recognize them, embrace them, to place your little "I love you" and your kiss of love to make a purchase of them. In our Fiat there is neither yours nor mine, between Creator and creature, but everything is communion, and therefore by right she can ask for whatever she wants. Oh, how afflicted and sorrowful I would feel amid so many pains and acts of mine done while I was on earth, if the little daughter of my will did not even recognize them and did not try to place around my act the cortege of her love and of her act. How could I give you the right if you did not recognize them? And even less could you make them your own. Recognizing our works is not only a right that we give, but possession. Therefore, if you want my divine will to reign, always go around in our Fiat. Recognize all our works, from the littlest to the greatest. Place your little act in each one of them, and everything will be granted to you. October 30th, 1932, Volume 31. One who lives in our divine will emits three acts: concurring, assisting, and receiving. All the divine qualities continually call one who lives in its will in order to form her and raise her similar to them. The sea of the divine volition continues to murmur in my soul. Oh, how sweet, penetrating, and overwhelming is its murmur. It overwhelms me so much that I murmur together with it, as if this divine sea were mine. And fused together, I don't know how to do anything other than what the supreme will itself does. But while I murmured love, adoration, joy, happiness, beauty, that entered into me as so many veins, my sweet Jesus, visiting his little daughter, told me, "My blessed daughter, your littleness in the interminable sea of our volition is our greatest joy. You must know that one who lives in it emits concurrent, assisting, and receiving acts. In the first place, she concurs with the same acts of her Creator, the will of one being the will of the other. There is nothing this divine will does in which it does not place the creature together to concur in its work. And this is why my volition is no longer alone. It feels the inseparability of one who lives in it. In her act, it feels a finite will in the infinite, that loves together and concurs in the multiplicity and incessant operation of our works. So one who lives in our will breaks our solitude and as natural we feel her current in our divine sea, and with a continuous repouring of her littleness into us, she acquires the rights of our volition to do what it does. Ah, you do not understand what is our contentment, our joy, in feeling the creature concurrent together in order to do nothing else but what we do. From the concurrent act arises the assisting act. It concurs and assists. There is nothing that we do that she does not know and assist in. How can we hide ourselves from one who already is with us, concurring and having her place in our volition? But will she only concur and assist? Ah, no, another act arises, and it is that of receiving as hers and as ours the infinity of our love and of our works, so much so that her littleness has no place to put a love and work so great, and therefore she leaves it in our volition with all the deposit of the goods that she has received. And she does this by right, because she has of its own. You must know that everything that is done in our will is so great that the creature is incapable of being able to possess it and to restrict it in herself. Therefore, she feels the need to make use of the same will in which she has worked in order to keep the deposit. Even more, because everything that the creature has done in our volition, even the little I love you, the little offerings of her actions, her littleness at the mercy of our will, are nothing other than posts that she takes in our will. And however many more posts she takes, so many more rights she acquires, and she feels in herself the divine strength that continuously enraptures her, gives her the flight in order to let her life be formed completely in the divine will. And since this way of living must be for all creatures, this was the purpose of our creation. But to our greatest bitterness, we see that almost all live in the depths of their human wills. Now, one who lives in the height of our volition sees the great evil of the one who lives in the depths, and having at her disposition our receiving act, that is to say, the infinity of our love and the multiplicity of our works, she puts them at our disposition and that of the creatures, so that we are reciprocated with the love of everyone, and they receive graces, light, and love, for how much it is within the competence of their littleness. So between heaven and earth, we hold the intermediary near us and near creatures, who with the power of our divine fiat wants to bind heaven and earth. And how not to content one who lives in our will? It would be as if we wanted to displease ourselves. So I continued my abandonment in the supreme volition, and oh, how happy I felt in thinking that in the fiat I concurred in everything that the Supreme Being did. My will fused in theirs was the great secret and portentous prodigy that my littleness was taken as in the snare of doing and concurring in all that the divine majesty does. Nor could I set myself aside, nor could they undo themselves from me, because it was their own will that had taken me into their midst, that was so immense that I didn't find the way in order to go out. And anywhere I might be able to go, I found the operating divine will that enclosed me in its own work to concur, nor was I an intruder. It itself had extended its arms to me in order to hold me as its conquest. Even more because on both sides there was greatest happiness, I to remain, and the divine volition to holding my littleness bound to itself. Therefore, I do not know how to clearly say how I wandered in this interminable light. And while I was completely surprised, my dear life, my sovereign Jesus added, my little daughter of my volition, living in my will is a continuous call that we make to the creature in our divine qualities. Our being is always operating, and our attributes are always in motion. But since our volition is what forms the work and the motion inside of our being, one who lives in it feels that our volition calls her now into our power, now into our wisdom, now into our love, now into the mercy, now into the justice, goodness, and divine beauty. In sum, all our attributes with powerful voices call the creature to be inside of them, so that she forms and grows according to their qualities. They would feel dishonored if they could not give to one who lives with that same volition of which they are animated. She would not conform to them, nor would she enjoy their prerogatives. That they tolerate littleness, this doesn't bother them, because one knows that the finite can never reach the infinite, but that the littleness, indeed the littleness, gives them more honor, because all the beauty and good that they see in her is all their work. However, that she is dissimilar from them, this never. Here is the reason for the whispering and continuous shouting that one who lives in our will hears. They are the continuous calls that our Supreme Being, by means of its qualities, makes to its beloved creature. Before, the creature did not want or know how to be, and this cannot be, because our will being one, it has such virtue of union and of inseparability that everything that freely enters into it loses the virtue of separating, and our highest goodness feels the need of love to keep with itself what is its own, and forms a particle of its own will. This is why our divine qualities demand she who is animated by their same will in their motion and works, in order to live together. They would feel a rip and a broken will if they did not have her with them. Was it not a rip that the first man made from within our will by withdrawing himself from it? And this rip was so grave that it overturned the whole order of creation for him, and he arrived at rejecting his Creator with all the tide of his divine graces. Therefore, one who lives in our volition is the repairer of this rip so sorrowful that costs us so much. And our divine being arms all our attributes around us and around her, so that the same trick is not repeated, and living together with us, we are happy, she and us. And if you wanted to doubt what I say, it is a sign that you have not understood well how much I love the creature. And in order to have her with me and completely mine, my love makes me arrive at excesses, delirium, and follies. After all, I have all the rights to love her, because she is mine and made by me. And if you are mine, I am yours, and therefore you also have the rights to love me. And if you might not love me, you would lack a most sacred duty toward who has given you being and loves you so much. Therefore let us love each other always and a great deal, and love will not remain quiet, but will make new discoveries of love arise. October 30th, 1933, Volume 32, The Divine Will, Guide of the Soul, and She, Collector of the Works of her Creator. How one who lives in the divine will receives the transmission of what has been done first in God and then communicated to her. I was doing my round in the creation, and it seemed to me that all created things wanted the great honor of being offered as homage and glory to their Creator, and I passed from one thing to another. And I felt myself so rich, because I had so many things to give to He who loves me so much, and that while He had done everything for me, I could give everything to God, in order to be able to say to Him, I love you by means of your works that are pregnant with your love, and they teach me to love you. But while I did this, my highest good Jesus, surprising me, all goodness told me, how beautiful it is to find our daughter in the midst of our works. We feel that she wants to compete with us. We, in order to love her, have created everything for her, and we have given her everything so that she could possess them, she could enjoy them, and they would be the narrators of our power and the bearers of our love. And therefore, in every created thing, she feels our love that embraces her, that kisses her, and that molding her tells her strongly and tenderly, I love you. She feels our embraces of love that we make her from our divine bosom, and in the midst of so much love, she loses herself and is confounded. And in order to compete with us, she takes our same way that we took in creating so many things in order to descend to her. And placing herself on the way in each created thing, she feels what we did for her and how we love her. And she repeats to us what we did for her. She repeats to us our loving embraces, our ardent kisses, our outpourings of love, and oh, our contentment in seeing that the creature rises to us and brings us what with so much love we gave her and we give her. Our will acts as guide and brings her even to us in order to make the exchange of what we have given her, such that one who lives in our will is the collector of all our works, and she brings them to us, into our womb, in order to tell us, I love you with your own love. I glorify you by means of your power. You have given me everything, and I give you everything. So I continued my round in the divine will, and arriving in Eden, I thought to myself, oh, how I would want the love, the adoration of innocent Adam, in order to be able to also love my God with the same love with which the first creature created by him loved him. And my sweet Jesus, surprising me, told me, my blessed daughter, for one who lives in my divine will, she finds in it what she wants. Because of everything that she does in it, nothing escapes outside, but everything remains inside together with it, inseparable from it. Rather, they form its same life. Therefore, of everything that Adam did in my divine will, he could not bring anything with himself. At the most only the happy memory of how he had loved, of the seas of love that inundated him, of the pure joys that he had enjoyed, and of what he had done in our Fiat. Memory that served to embitter him even more. One act done in our will, one love, one adoration formed in it is so great that the creature does not have the capacity or the place in which to put it. Therefore only in my will can these acts be done and possessed. So one who enters into it finds in act everything that innocent Adam did in it. His love, his tendernesses of son toward his celestial Father, the divine paternity that overshadowed his son from all sides in order to love him, She makes everything hers, and she loves, adores, and repeats what innocent Adam did. My divine will does not change or alter. What it was, so it is, and will be. Provided the creature enters into it and lives together with it, it places no limits, nor sets restrictions. Rather, it says, take what you want. Love me as you want. In my fiat, what is mine is yours. Only outside of it do divisions, separations, distances start, and the beginning of life yours and mine. Rather, you must know that everything that the creature should do in our will is first done in God, and she, in the act of doing them, receives the transmission of the love of the divine acts into her, and continues to do what was done in our Supreme Being. How beautiful are these lives that receive the transmission of what was first done in us! They are our most beautiful works. The magnificent things of creation, the sky, the sun, remain behind them. They surpass everything. They are absolute sanctities determined by us that cannot escape us. We give them so much of ours that we drown them with our goods in a way that she does not find the void to think if she must correspond or not, because the current of divine light and love keeps her besieged and as fused in her Creator. And we give her such knowledge about things that serves her free will, so that nothing she does is forced, but of spontaneous and resolute will. Therefore these celestial creatures are our occupation, our continuous labor. We keep each other always occupied, since our will does not know how to be idle, because it is life, labor, and perennial motion. And therefore one who lives in it always has something to do, and she always gives her Creator something to do. October 30th, 1938, Volume 36. How we redouble our love to the creature who loves in our will. Astonishment of heaven. How the creature acquires the right to judge. My little walk in the divine will continues, even though it seems that I do it with difficulty, step after step. But my Jesus seems to be satisfied as long as I don't deviate, getting out of his fiat. I can say that I am really ill because of the many painful incidents of my poor existence. This is why he is happy with the little I do. However, he never stops pushing me and attracting me, telling me new surprises about his will, to make me restart my flight. So visiting my little soul, he told me, "My blessed daughter of my will, how I yearn for the soul to live in our divine will. I am so pleased when she repeats her acts in it, that I go on preparing new gifts, graces, love, and knowledge to make her know my will more and more, and to make her appreciate and esteem the celestial residence in which she had the great honor to reside. Therefore, if she loves, I redouble my love for her. And if she returns to love me, I always come back with new love to surprise her, so much so that the creature feels inundated and confused. She repeats, 'Is it possible that a God loves me so much?' And as she says so, taken by the ardor of my love, she returns to love me, and I again surprise her with my love. It is like a contest of love, the human smallness that harmonizes with the love of her Creator. And she doesn't love me only for herself. Her love is such that she loves me for everyone and everything. Then what does my fiat do? By its power and immensity, it puts wings on this love we gave to the creature, making it soar everywhere. We feel that she loves us in each step, motion, thought, word, and heartbeat of all the creatures. She loves us in the sun, wind, air, and sea. There is nothing in which she doesn't love us. Oh, how happy and glorified we feel that the creature loves us in all and everywhere. For this, not only do we love her, but we love all creatures with new love. Had an act of love in my will, such great prodigies happen that the heavens compete to be spectators and enjoy the new surprises of our love. Our very divinity waits with unspeakable joy for the creature to enter into our will to love us, to be able to show off our love, to feel loved by all. We unleash our love to become her life, and not only our love. As the creature goes repeating her acts in our fiat, we unleash new power, goodness, and wisdom, so that she will feel animated by new power, goodness, and wisdom. All will take part in it, and we will have the joy of seeing the human creatures, all generations, being invested by our new power, goodness, and wisdom. What wouldn't we make of this creature who lives in our will? We even reach the extent of giving her the right to judge together with us. And if we see that she suffers because the sinner is under a rigorous judgment, to soothe her pain we mitigate our just chastisements. She makes us give the kiss of forgiveness, and to make her happy we say to her, "Poor daughter, you are right. You are ours and belong also to them. You feel in you the bonds of the human family, therefore you would want that we forgive everybody. We'll do as much as we can to please you, unless he despises or refuses our forgiveness." This creature in our will is the new Esther wanting to rescue her peoples. Oh, how happy we are to keep her always with us in our will, because through her we feel more inclined to use mercy, to concede graces, to forgive the most obstinate sinners, and to lessen the pains of the purging souls. Poor daughter, she has a thought for everyone, and a pain similar to ours, seeing the human family swimming in our will without recognizing it, living in the middle of enemies in the most wretched misery. Then he added, "My daughter, you must know that as the creature recognizes our will, she loves it, wanting to make her life in it. So she pours into her God, and God pours into her. With this pouring from both sides, God makes the creature his own, making her take part in all his acts, resting in her, feeding her, making her grow more and more in his acts, and the creature makes God her own, feeling him everywhere, taking her sweet rest in the one she loves and who forms her life. God is all for her. Further, as the creature does her act in our fiat, we feel her bond with all created beings. In that act she wants to give us everyone and everything. It seems she makes all beings visit us, so all may recognize us, love us, and fulfill their duties towards their Creator. She makes up for all, loves for everyone and everything. Nothing can miss in one act done in our will, otherwise we cannot say it is our act. Our will, for decorum and honor, offers to the creature all that she should give us and do to us. It offers all the other creatures and the whole of creation as if it was her right. If we didn't find in our will, in which the creature operates, all the glory, honor, and the return we deserve for having given life to all, and for having created many things to maintain these lives, where could we find it? Our will is diffused in all. It is love and support for all. And our greatest glory is that the creature who lives in our will gives it the opportunity to make her do what each creature should do to give of glory and compensation for having been created. We knew that the creature was limited. Her littleness couldn't give us either complete love or complete glory. Therefore we exposed our divine being, the power of our will, in order to receive what was due to us. The creature living in our will was to be a guarantee of love and glory from all through her. Therefore these are the rights we demand, that she live in it. We demand rights of creation, of redemption, rights of power, justice, immensity, so that at least what she can't do by herself, she does, united with our will. Then we can say, the creature loves us. She glorifies us as we want and deserve. Therefore, if you want to give us all and love us for all, live always in my will. So we'll find everything and our rights will be satisfied. End of October 30th. Fiat.